Hello, and welcome to the first official devlog for The Perished.
My name is Max Humes, and The Perished is a survival horror game that I've been creating for over 2 years now using the Unity3D game engine. Through the highs and lows of its development, I've made slow but steady progress on the game, and I'm planning to release it in August of 2024.
Now in its final stages of development, I want to take you along to show you what it's like creating a 3D game as an indie developer. But before we get into it, if you're interested in playing The Perished on release, or if you just want to follow the development of the game, be sure to check out the links below where you can wishlist our game, follow our socials, or even join our mailing list where you can get an absolutely sick desktop background for completely free. Now let's jump right into it.
Today, we'll be looking at my most recent accomplishments in my game, which is completely revamping the interactive opening cutscene of my game. Now, this cutscene was created in the fall of 2021 during a game jam. As such, we are on quite a time crunch and had to cut quite a few corners. These corners included really bad textures, janky movement with a nav mesh instead of real animations, and of course the driverless car. Where are the arms? Since then, when showing off the game to friends and playtesters, I've always said something like, oh, these are just placeholder assets, but today that's going to change. To start out, this road and the grass textures and trees around it were imported to my game as a free asset from the Unity Asset Store. And while it looks good enough for a free asset and for a game jam, the flat textures don't really fit into my game, The Perished. I wanted to create my own terrain around the road, so using the handy-dandy Export to FBX Unity plugin, I dragged my asset into Blender to remove everything but the road. Back in Unity, I then laid out my own new terrain and used the Set Height brush in Unity's terrain editor to give myself a base for adding details around the road. I then started painting the terrain in a little bit more fine detail, and now I had two things on my to-do list. First, I wanted to add details to the terrain around my road, including mountains, trees, and rocks. Second, I wanted to create an actual animation for the driving car instead of using Unity's nav mesh system as a cop-out. This would give me way more control and let me prevent things like the car driving on the wrong side of the road. I started this first step by adding this snowy mountain material to my terrain. I also found a very nice free asset in the Unity Asset Store, which included some very nice mountain assets, as well as a very nice skybox with mountains in the distance. By using this free asset, I saved myself hours of work modeling and texturing my own mountains, which wouldn't have even looked half as good. So don't be afraid to do this if you're making your own game. In the cutscene, the player can only see the terrain about half of the time, where the other half of the time there are credits over a 2D black canvas. So this actually made me realize that I didn't want to focus on the finer details like trees and rocks until I knew exactly where my car would be along the road each time that the player can actually see. Because of this, I hopped over to Blender to start working on my car animation. Now, I am no Blender expert. I'm a total programming jockey with a degree in computer science. However, I remembered that objects can be animated over Bezier curves in Blender, and I thought this would be a quick and painless way to create my own animation. And it was, sort of. I started out by extruding my curve along the road. This needed a lot of fine-tuning to make sure that the car was driving on the right side of the road and to make sure that the car was not floating above the ground. However, eventually I got things where I wanted them to be. Next, I added an empty object to the scene and added a follow path constraint to it. I then parented the empty to our car interior object, rotated the car so it would properly follow the curve, and the car was going backwards into the void. Now, this required a lot of digging on my end. Remember, I am not the savviest Blender user in the world. Eventually, though, I figured out that you can flip the normals of the Bezier curve so that the empty travels the other way along it. Finally, I exported my animation over to Unity, and with a lot of tweaking and Googling, I got the animation just how I wanted it. Now, it was finally time to add the final details to my scene. Using Unity's built-in terrain tools, I populated my terrains with the tree assets which are used in my game. I then touched these trees up and removed trees which intersected with the road. I also added in rocks, and of course, Unity crashed on me. Luckily, I saved most of my work before that. And with that, my work week was pretty much finished. Now check out the results.
Hi, Dad. I know you're at work, but I just wanted to let you know know that me and Maria just got into Alberta. In a few minutes, we're gonna be hiking into our grandpa's cabin. Dad, you gotta do something. Why won't you pick up your phone? Please, something's wrong. It's super rustic, like no electricity, no heat or anything. I'm gonna be freezing. Maria went to get firewood like 2 hours ago and she still isn't back. It sounds like there's something outside the cabin. God, they don't even have a TV or Wi-Fi. At least Maria has the key to her grandpa's liquor cabinet. I think I heard voices coming from the basement too. I'm hiding under the bed, but I don't know how long I can stay here. Just kidding, just kidding. You know I would never ever drink. I know you worry, so I sent our location too. I called the police, but the nearest station is like 40 miles away. Please, Dad, you need to help me. I don't know what to do. I actually heard there might be a big snowstorm coming in, so it's a good thing I brought those snow boots. Okay, anyways, I gotta go now. Love you, bye.
Now, as I mentioned, I still want to add arms to this cutscene, but the cutscene is looking so much better than it did before. As such, I'm going to take a well-deserved break from the art and animation to get back into programming the AI for the enemy in my game. If you'd like to follow that along, I will be live streaming that process in the following weeks, and I'll be coming out with plenty more devlogs for you to follow the development of our game. Finally, if you're interested in playing The Perished, or if you want to follow the development, make sure to check out the links in the description as I mentioned before. Peace, guys.